the internet and setting up this two-track. There's a lot more to this. I write about it in the book, and I'd urge you to go to savetheinternet.com if you're not familiar with it for all the background information on it, and including the timeline of the Supreme Court decision, the FCC decisions, and the Justice Department decisions, where we are now. To put it short, though, we've really got only till the end of 2008 to win this thing, or early 2009 for sure, maybe into 2009. And it's absolutely a fundamental win we have to get. We have to get network neutrality, the law of the land. Fortunately, for those who follow politics, all the Democratic candidates say they're for it. I think they probably are, some more enthusiastically than others. And even a couple of the Republicans are for it. Your friend Huckabee.
Yeah.
You discuss biology with him, probably. Evolution.
That's why I'm everything you know.
Yeah, oh God, that's a frightening thought. It explains a lot. So let me talk a few lessons that we've learned in the media reform movement, at Free Press, and I think more broadly. First of all, one of the things that made this movement possible, unquestionably, was the internet itself, was the new technologies. It radically lowered the cost of doing political work. We could not have organized 500,000 people if we had to use stamps and envelopes and pay for that. We would never have gotten to 500,000 people. We needed to use the internet to really effectively and inexpensively do the organizing we do. And we have a very sophisticated email system similar to MoveOn's by issue area, by zip code, so we can get people in. We can really use it to effectively strike quickly on an issue in a moment's notice. We've also been among the pioneers at using YouTube and MySpace and Facebook as part of our organizing campaign. So I mean, I think part of this movement's, and Free Press specifically, understand that's where a lot of the organizing is going. And for a very simple reason is that this is a young person's movement. I'm by far the oldest person associated with Free Press, by far. Josh is probably second oldest or third oldest, and he's 39. Well, I'm sorry to give your age, Josh. No, he's 29. What was I thinking? And but you know, most age of the people who work with those 33 organizers, they're almost all your age or a little older. They're young people. Social change is made by young people, always. It's not made by people like me or Mark. It's made, you know, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King both died before they were 40. I mean, social change is made by people your age, your 20s and 30s. That's the shock troops of people who change the world, and that's how it is in this movement. That's how it is for our group. We also learned some really interesting lessons. You know, we were told by everyone before 2002, and you'll still hear it from today. One of the reasons I wrote this book, that these issues are too wonky. They're in the weeds. People don't get this stuff. You know, gigabytes and network neutrality and cross ownership. This sort of stuff, you know, people hear this stuff and their brains wig out. Their eyeballs fall out, their hair falls out. They can't deal with it. This is the last thing people can possibly understand are these sort of media issues. This is just not going to work. You can't organize in these issues. And what we discovered was that's not true at all. We discovered that in fact, people do get it. And I don't want to be moralistic here, but I think it's fair to say this. What we've learned is that if you treat people like they're smart, caring, intelligent people, you know what you find out? People are smart, caring, intelligent. If you assume that people are basically morons who don't care and don't get it, you know what? They're probably going to seem like morons who don't care and don't get it. And what we found is that if you actually present these issues to people, they really do care. They care about their children's brains being marinated in advertising. They care about the fact that journalism is terrible and we're going to wars for reasons no one can understand. They really do care. If you speak to people, we found they did respond. And they're smart enough to say, hey, yeah, you know, maybe if the media covered this, we wouldn't be at this war. Maybe we would have a different president. Maybe we would you know, not have the problems we're facing. And you know, we've done a lot of work with grassroots hearings. It's a lot of what Free Press does is organizing outside of the Beltway to trying to raise awareness across the country. We've organized 20 public hearings in the last 2 years long, since January 2006. And these are not hearings of college professors. These are not hearings of lawyers and lobbyists. These are average Americans. And you know, one of the set of hearings we did, focus groups actually, was with working class adults in America. We wanted to get their feeling on public broadcasting. Now, before this set of focus groups was done, like most people, I assumed, well, of course, any red-blooded working class American is going to hate public broadcasting. It's pitched at rich people because they want the pledge drive money. The shows are largely terrible. They're about giraffes and business investments and opera. I mean, from most people's perspective, I mean, they're shows that no one wants to watch, so they'd be on regular television, right? And so we figured no working class person is going to like public broadcasting because they don't want their tax dollars to pay for something they don't watch. That's Bill O'Reilly tells us all the time. So we assumed that would be the case. And we were struck by the fact that working class adults, like the rest of us, understood that they're not the only people who consume media in a society. That just because you don't watch a show doesn't mean you don't want the station to exist. Just because I don't go to the symphony doesn't mean I don't think it's a good thing to have a symphony orchestra in a town and I'm willing to pay a little for it. That people understood that the media system is about more than themselves. It's about more than what they immediately consume. And that what they personally consume shouldn't be determined by what the entirety of the media system is. Now, to give an example of this, in other words, people understood that as citizens rather than consumers, they had to be willing, and they understood they needed to countenance a much broader media system than just their own viewpoint, their own ideas, and their own entertainment. To put this in context for how I feel about this, and I think this is a way to explain it, I will never go to a national park again in my life if I can help it. I just won't. I've been to them. I like national parks. They're terrific places. I've actually slept in a couple of them. But at this point, I've seen enough of them. I'm 54. If I'm going to go to a party or a vacation from now on, I'd rather go see friends. I'd rather go to a bar and drink and sit around, chew the fat, talk about media reform or basketball. But that doesn't, by the sort of sort of market analysis of human behavior, that would say, well, then I'm in favor of getting rid of national parks, since obviously I don't use them. Let's just pave them over, because Bob McChesney doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to support them. And as a consumer, that would be an accurate reading of my behavior. But as a citizen, I'm more than willing to pay a great deal in taxes for national parks. I'm willing to pay a lot more than I'm currently paying to expand the amount of national parks. And I think that's what we found in these hearings, that people understand that. If you approach people as citizens and not as consumers, you approach people and say, what do you think? And you give them a chance to explain, and you talk to them, good things happen. The other thing we discovered was the consensus was that people will only be interested in media once all the other of the world's problems have been solved. Once you've taken care of poverty, war and peace, hunger, the environment, the works, then once you get down to like issue number 97, you've taken 1 through 96 and solved, then finally you can introduce media. But no one's going to want to make that high up on their list. And what we've discovered is quite the opposite. To our surprise, again, we didn't anticipate this, is that media is in many ways a gateway issue for people, because people in our society, all of you, we're also immersed in media constantly. It's not an abstract issue to us. We're experiencing it all the time. So when we learn how power works through media policy and media structures, then you say, oh, if it works like that here, how does it work with healthcare? How does it work on environmental policy? And it draws people into public life. So media, rather than being the last issue on the list, media reform is a gateway issue to draw people into life as activists and as organizers. And then finally, the other lesson we've learned about media that's really important, and one of the striking things about it is that the media reform movement, both, I got someone calling me like a lunatic, I'm sorry about that.
It's Rudy's wife.
Yeah, oh yeah. Tell him not to run. That actually my 11-year-old daughter wondering what the hell I just said. At any rate, what we've learned about media reform that's so interesting is that it's both a nonpartisan issue and it's a progressive issue. And it's very interesting that way. It makes very different politics from like being a labor organizer or an environmental organizer, or social justice organizer, and other issues. It's nonpartisan in the sense that all the issues we're working on, network neutrality, stopping government propaganda, having local ownership of media, having lots of funding for nonprofit and non-commercial media, low power FM, all those issues don't favor one particular viewpoint. They're all about just creating institutional resources to have a broader, richer media culture. So it's not like you only have to be a liberal or a conservative to favor this particular policy. They're open to everyone. It's truly nonpartisan. And on every issue we work on, without exception, we have support from across the political spectrum, especially outside the Beltway, where big money doesn't own it. We have conservatives who support us on every single issue. I mean, people think, well, public broadcasting, no conservative supports that. And I get a kick out of that, because I was recently reading an interview with Barry Goldwater, Mr. Conservative from the mid-1980s. And Barry Goldwater was bemoaning, he was then a senator from Arizona, he was bemoaning, it's in my book, I think, the quote, but I'll repeat it. He was bemoaning